Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast, and we've got Light and Dark today. We've got myself and podcast guru, play-by-play commentator, producer. The list just goes on and on. Mr. TJ De Santis, how we doing, sir?
Overemployed, underpaid. Let's go with that. That's not true. I'm well taken care of, but I do have a lot of jobs, and everyone likes to remind me of that. And whenever that happens, I'm like, oh crap, what did I forget to do before I decided to do this interview?
Well, I mean, you've got the nice UFC Fight Pass logo there, not plugging anything, but, I mean, you do a lot of work for them, so, hopefully you didn't forget to do something and you don't have one less job when this show is over, so.
Oh, it's 100% plugging things. That's why it's there, my friend. That's why, it's a focal point. Extra rounds, I don't have to do that until tomorrow, which is good, but when I get done with this, I have to record a podcast with Eve Edwards. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. I should probably figure that out. And then I have to produce a podcast about professional wrestling from 1993, I think.
Bret Hart days? Are we going back that far? Or?
Yeah, so I produce a wrestling podcast called The Lapsed Fan, which primarily covers professional wrestling from 25 to 30 years ago. Also known when it was way better than it is now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up on wrestling, and we've talked about wrestling almost every, the last, 3 or 4 shows, but it always comes up because I'm like, I can't turn on wrestling now and go, all right, it's the same 2 guys.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't watched in weeks, but I can pick up the storyline.
I mean, I haven't watched pro wrestling in about 19 years, and my very casual awareness of pro wrestling tells me it's WrestleMania time, meaning Roman Reigns is likely headlining something or other, which turns out to be the case once again. And I don't know. Pro wrestling was awesome until I saw what a real fight looked like, and then I just never watched it again.
And that's so funny because I remember watching the days of Ken Shamrock and being like, he's too violent. Like, I can't handle this.
Right.
Around those times, I was 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that where I'm just like, I'm allowed to watch WCW and nothing else.
I mean, Ken Shamrock being too violent, what did you not like about Ken Shamrock? He just attacked people's legs. He wasn't the Hardy Boys, throwing people through tables.
Well, listen, that didn't come till later. That didn't come till later. But when you watch WCW, they weren't anywhere near as violent. And Ken just seemed mean and I think scary if I really think about it.
I mean, WCW wasn't as near violent, but it was also not logical and very sanitized and odd. They had a dude named That 70s Guy. That 70s Guy, Mike Awesome. Okay. What does that mean? He's stuck in the 70s. It's 2000. Okay, cool. Why does he have to fight? I don't.
Ultimo Dragon, man.
I was a big fan of the Ultimo Dragon for sure.
Dude, I was when Rey Mysterio first came out and he was really, really tiny, him and Billy Kid, all that stuff. To me, that was wrestling. And you see a lot
and then
of
they
now.
Took off Rey Mysterio's mask and just destroyed everything for you.
No, and then they pumped him full of steroids, and I don't know what happened.
They didn't do that. That was a choice on his behalf. He's an independent contractor after all.
Oh, man, that's
the thing. The parallels between mixed martial arts and wrestling. Pro wrestling will inform your, I think, ideology about how mixed martial arts is promoted and ran. And if you're a pro wrestling fan, I think that you can sort of appreciate or at least understand some of the tactics that are used in promoting mixed martial arts. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're definitely different. They're very much different, but mixed martial arts will always borrow from that pro wrestling model when it comes to making some of the sport's biggest fights.
Well, yeah, and of course, and I hate that, but I understand it's what needs to be done.
Why? Why do you? Because I used to feel that way too, but at the end of the day, it's kind of what is necessary. Casuals make the world go round. Casual fans are the ones that
hurts,
make
but
the biggest.
Damn it, it's true.
It's true though. You don't have casual fans. You don't have the multi-million-dollar paydays. Hardcores are great. What are hardcores going to give you? Not enough, unfortunately. I'm a hardcore fan. I get it. I understand. But at the end of the day, if you don't, cross over into that casual mainstream world, you're always going to be a niche. And when you're a niche, it means the best in the world are largely underpaid.
Interesting. Wow, that got intense real fast. How did we get from professional wrestling to that? But you're right. like when you put it that way, and I hate that you're right. I really do, because we as the hardcore
My
fans,
wife hates when I'm right too. Just want to point that out. Which is never in her eyes. But yes, continue. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm not editing that part out either, so you're fine. Be like, listen, I said it. It's on air. Like, it's there.
I'm not wrong, unless you ask her.
But, like I said, you made a point that I hate as hardcore fans, or as people who really dive in and aren't just watching because of Ronda or Conor or John Jones or Brock Lesnar, and you're watching for all these up-and-comers. You almost get irritated when you see these things, but you're right. It is a business that has to run that way. I don't have to agree with it to know that it works.
Right. And also, too, I think accepting it is not necessarily condoning it either. I mean, I'm not saying that every mixed martial arts fight needs to be billed the way that Conor McGregor, promotes himself. It doesn't have to. And that's what's great about combat sports as a whole, especially I think mixed martial arts, is the athletes are in charge of the way that the world perceives them. They can go out there and do their damnedest to put out the image that they want to. But what we've seen is people that follow a pro wrestling model, or, sort of borrow elements of the promoting game from a Conor McGregor or a Brock Lesnar, or even Ronda Rousey, which I think was a lot more authentic than it was contrived with Ronda. Those people are the most successful, and you can never really be upset at anyone for wanting to put the most amount of money in their bank account, because at the end of the day, your window to make big money in professional sports is very small.
Yeah. And
your ability to extend that window when you no longer can compete is by maximizing your ability to make money in that window. So again, I get it. I think that sometimes the way Conor acts, it's weird. Sometimes it's cringy. I mean, Henry Cejudo, he's cringy, but you know what? I mean, it makes money.
We're still talking
it works
about
sometimes. Right. 100%. And I'm never going to be upset at anyone for trying to maximize their potential.
And again, I feel like it's an insider's perspective, but you've been doing this for a very long time. You've been in this world for a very long time, and I think you've seen every side of it except for being inside a cage when it comes to that knowledge.
I had a grappling match in a cage. I don't know if that counts.
Ooh, when was this?
2004? May 2004?
Is there
I was supposed to fight in 2004, believe it or not.
No.
Thankfully, that didn't happen. I was supposed to fight a gentleman named Sean Nolan. You can look him up. I think he's 6-46. So I either would have been his 7th win or his 47th loss. People have been calling me a noob for a really long time. That's what you're saying.
No.
Okay, then I'm saying that. People have been calling me a noob for a really long time.
Listen, I thought about taking an amateur fight, and I was given a prompt no. That's not going to happen. And if you want to know,
it's smart.
I've thrown 2 punches in my life, and I hate that somehow this is coming up every time. But
I mean, I generally don't offer my experience as something to lean upon when it comes to mixed martial arts and technique and skill. That's not me. That's why I surround myself with much more intelligent people that have had practical use. But I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. So if you were a Midwestern kid like me that was, intrigued by mixed martial arts, you eventually made it to a gym. And if you made it to a gym and stayed there for too long, you found somebody that would throw you in a fight. And that's sort of what happened with me. I just wanted to do jiu-jitsu, and I couldn't afford jiu-jitsu, so I ended up training with an MMA team. I love mixed martial arts, and I love the idea of what it is, and I've been attracted to trying to be a part of it in a lot of different fashions. But even before I found mixed martial arts, I've been a broadcaster. I worked in FM radio. I started working at a radio station when I was 15 years old. I was on the air by the time I was 17 years old, and now I'm 37. Have never had a job that didn't involve a microphone. And we're not talking about drive-throughs either. I never worked at McDonald's or anything like that. But no, I've been incredibly lucky to, like you said, experience a lot of this sport firsthand.
And I think that's a really cool part about it too. Is, jokes aside, you have been doing this for a while. So I want to start with, how did you get into a radio station at 15? besides it being in the Midwest, and I guess they just let you do whatever the hell you want.
So I mean, we can joke about the Midwest and it being rural, and in mixed martial arts, you definitely could do whatever you wanted to because it was mostly unregulated. But truth be told, I started interning for a radio station in Minneapolis, which was a top 15 market. I think it was 15, might have been 17. It flip flops back and forth between Seattle and itself. So it's like anywhere from 15 to 17 as far as market size. I called the radio station 93X in Minneapolis to tell them that they were dumb because they took my favorite radio station off the air. They changed formats, and the disc jockey at the time thought that I was funny enough to offer me an internship. He ended up getting promoted to the morning show, and I became his assistant producer, and that's what I did while going to high school.
That's insane. A phone call.
It was. Yeah.
You guys suck.
Yeah. I mean, that's my whole career has kind of been built off that one phone call. Like, I called to tell him that he was dumb and his radio station was stupid. And he said, you know what? You're stupid. I'm going to educate you about radio. So he had me be his intern, and I was on the air there. I found mixed martial arts while I was working there and decided, I'm going to start an MMA radio show. And I did that with a friend of mine who I was training with. It was an MMA radio show because the word podcast wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Never heard that word before. And I ended up doing this MMA radio show, and I didn't call. I guess I emailed Jeff Sherwood, who ran SureDog.com at the time, and was like, hey, I got this interview with Quentin Jackson because Rampage put out his phone number on the SureDog.com forums. And I called it, and he answered. And I promptly hung up because I was like, "Holy, that's Quentin Jackson." I really didn't expect him to answer the phone. So a few days go by, and then I call Quentin again and asked him to do the radio show, and he did it, and we ran it on SureDog. And I asked Jeff, "I'd really like you to hire me, and by hire I mean like let me do this radio show, and then you can just put it on your website. You don't have to give me anything for it." He said no. So I worked for a website called InsideFighting.com for about 18 months and did it until it became a chore. And I went back to Jeff and said, I've been doing this radio show here for 18 months. I don't like doing it anymore. You should pay me to do it or I'm going to stop. And he paid me to do it. So it worked out.
Wow. So 2 times you've just been like, yo, you're stupid. You guys suck. Like, this is
kinda. I mean, yeah, I believe that opportunities come in life in one of 2 ways. They either present themselves and you can make the most of that opportunity that presents itself, or you go out there and make it. And I'm not a smart person. I'm really not. Like, I'm not good at anything other than kind of what you and I are doing right now. I'm good at, shooting the shit and talking, and I'm passionate about certain things, mixed martial arts being probably the thing that I'm most passionate about next to just broadcasting in itself. And I realized from a pretty young age, like this internship I had, I got to do something with this because this is it. Like it's either this or failure. And thankfully, I've been able to turn that radio internship into a broadcast career that has gone on 22 years.
That's incredible. Like, I love that story. I know you've probably told it 100 times and you're like, go find it somewhere else. Like, I've talked about this, but it really, like, even the passion then for you to be 15 years old and know, like, not even be able to comprehend at that moment what exactly you were doing, like how that was shaping the rest of your life.
I mean, I thought it was going to be like go into the radio station, hang out, meet some bands, get concert tickets, and then they'll get sick of me and I'll never do it again. I'll go get a real job. But like I said, I realized that I had a pretty great opportunity in front of me. I'm not a very traditional learner. Like, I can't sit in a class and read a book and pick things up that way. I can't do it, but I can watch people do things. And when I am interested in something, I become obsessed with it. And that's what I've done with broadcasting is like, I'm obsessed with the idea of a broadcast that follows a format. And I become just engrossed in the idea of how to make a radio break, like a simple radio break where you talk in between songs. It's very, I always say this word, and Jordan Breen used to give me shit about it. It's not a real word. It's called, I say it's formatical. I'm a formatical based broadcaster. And he's like, formatical is not a word, TJ. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know what it would be, but I'm format driven, I guess it would be. But like
I'm going to use formatical going forward. Like,
why not, right? I mean, if you say it with confidence, that's one thing I've learned in broadcasting. If you say something with confidence, no one will question you.
No.
They'll just like, oh yeah, that guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Sure. But so like a typical radio break, like when you're on the FM, you have positioners, which the radio station is their tagline. So for my radio station, it was either Minnesota's rock station 93X, Pure Rock for Minnesota 93X, or Minnesota Hears New Rock First on 93X. And we would start every break and finish every break with that. So it would be your A and your C would be your positioners, and then the B would be your content. So yeah, I mean, that's how you build it. So, I would say another one was, if it rocks, it's 93X. So if it rocks, it's 93X. Hey, everybody, it's TJ doing the overnight. You want to hear a song? 651-989-9393 is the number. Here's Disturbed. It's Stupefied. 93X rocks. Like that
was like my childhood right there. Like what you just did.
It's funny because like a lot of disc jockeys that like actually went to school would get lost in the idea of what they're trying to say, and they couldn't execute it because they would be too caught up in like, I'm going to be a character. I'm going to be a guy. I've literally approached every job that I've had with the idea that I'm not a guy. I'm just getting you where you need to go. And if I have a co-host, I want to make them look awesome. So like, I'm the vanilla ice cream to a sundae. No one really wants vanilla ice cream, but you want hot fudge. You want the cherry on top. And if you don't have the vanilla ice cream, hot fudge and a cherry just doesn't make any sense. It's like, what's wrong with you, weirdo? You can't put those in a bowl and eat it.
Holy shit. You just made me think about the time I got a banana split and I forgot the banana. I don't know why. I know there was a more important story there, but...
Right. And so what is that? That's not a banana split.
No.
It can't be a split, right? Because you're not splitting. Why do they call it a banana split? Is it because they split a banana?
Yeah. But I don't, like, who thought of that? Who was like, let's split a banana and throw some ice cream on top of it? And yeah,
I mean,
make this
somebody that was hungry and had really good taste.
Yeah.
Clearly.
I think the funniest part was me going back and I'm like, you guys forgot the banana. And they're like, you ate it. And I went, I'm not just going to eat the banana and go back for another one.
No. I mean, you would be a really sad individual if you did that. Like, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to go get a free banana right now. I mean, I'm going to pay for the rest of it, but I'm going to get the banana.
But I want that damn free banana.
Right, yeah.
This thing was
I do like
$8.
bananas.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting that you just talked about being like, I'm not a man. I'm just someone to get you there. Like, you're the formatical person. Yeah, I'm gonna use it.
Right. So the way that I've approached my broadcasting career is the idea, the same idea that I think exists in a dynamic of a sightseeing tour. Let's pretend we're going to go around Hollywood. Okay, we're on a bus. Let's go with the Invicta route. So Julie Kedzie is the tour guide on our Invicta FC bus.
Okay,
I'm the bus driver. You're not going to remember the bus driver on a sightseeing tour. You're going to remember who told you about the Hollywood sign, and it was built in whatever year, and it originally said Hollywoodland. You remember that person. If they do their job well, you remember that person. If I don't do my job well, you might not ever get to where you're wanting to go, so that person can't shine, right? And if I really do my job poorly, I kill us all because the bus comes in oncoming traffic. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I do my job well,
extremes.
I'm the most insignificant part of the sightseeing tour, but I could also kill us all.
Listen,
do you see what I'm saying?
I feel like quoting Star Wars right now. Like, only Siths deal with absolutes. What?
Never saw it. What? Met George Lucas once. Met his daughter as well, but never saw Star Wars.
All right, we'll have to.
That makes a lot of people upset. So, like, I've thought about making them more upset by only seeing the Phantom Menace, because apparently that's the worst one. Like Star Wars, yeah, Jar Jar Binks. Yeah,
he was the best.
Apparently not.
Somebody just burst into flames right now. Like, I don't know where they are, but somebody was just sitting in a group and just burst into flames. But listen,
I doubt that.
I watched some of the old Star Trek. I've never seen the Star Trek movies. I've never seen any of the Rocky movies, and that upsets a lot of people, especially with
I've seen Rocky Balboa.
Isn't that the last one?
I think so. And I think that, I think technically Creed and Creed 2 are the last ones. But you know, we didn't have cable growing up, so I didn't see any of that stuff. We didn't go to the movies, and yeah. So I've seen really odd movies. Like I've seen Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Why? Because my parents were young and wanted to go to that movie and didn't have a babysitter. So like I saw that with my parents in the theater. I saw Showgirls with my parents in the theater. NC-17 I saw when I'm like 9, which was a little awkward, but you know, we learn
Titanic, different
things, different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I haven't seen like a lot. Like people get pissed off at me when we start talking about movies. So like, yeah, never saw it.
I mean, end interview. Oh, what? Just kidding. Well, I know you love video games, so at least there's something there.
Sure, but I'm not your average gamer. Like most gamers like to play online. To me, video games are a solo experience. I don't want to talk to anybody at all. The idea of Twitch is just terrifying and horrifying to me. Like that is, hey, let's take your job and then take the one thing you like to get away from your job and then put it all together.
Yeah, definitely
don't want to do that. But yeah, I like to play sports games.
Of course,
by myself. Because I play online, then I just feel crappy about myself because 12-year-olds like beat me and then talk mad shit, and I'm like, son of a gun. This is not good.
I think I played Call of Duty online once, and it was like the first time I was playing it on Xbox, and I didn't know any controls. And like the kids online, I'm like looking at their gamer tags, and I'm like, you're like 7. Like
right, yeah,
and you're like,
yeah, they're 7, and their like gamer tag has like it ends in 420 or 69, and it's like, really? Okay,
it has to be
awesome.
69. Like there has to be multiples because somebody else has already.
That's true.
That. Yeah.
That's true. I can't even get TJDeSantis.com. Guy won't sell it to me.
$70,000.
I'm the only dude named TJ De Santis. I promise you that. Whatever his name is, like Timothy something. Not me. I'm TJ De Santis.
Yeah, I unfortunately there's a lot of Matt Quigginses out there, which I thought was surprising because I don't know anybody with my last name or anything close to it. So that always surprises.
I've only met one person close to my name, and that's JJ Aldrich, because her name is JJ. My name is TJ.
I mean, I guess that's close. I mean, DeSantis. I live in Florida, so DeSantis is all over.
Oh, cousin Ron. Yeah, cousin Ron.
I know we said no politics, but I couldn't avoid that one.
I'm not talking about politics. I'm just saying cousin Ron.
I do want to talk about the Combat Jiu-Jitsu that you were commentating on the other day. How painful was it to watch him try to get that submission? Because I watched it 3 times and I was like, this is like Frank Mir Nogueira all over again.
Yeah. To me, that's the worst Kimura I've ever seen. And like, spoiler alert, it didn't finish the fight.
No.
So it was hard for me to sit through that and not kind of go, because that's when I call fights, like I'm very calculated. But when I watch fights, like normally by myself, I'm one of those dudes that just say, oh shit. Like that's what I do over and over and over and over
exactly.
again. Right. And I didn't lose my composure there, but like you can only see someone's arm twist without squirming a little bit in your chair so much. And we definitely went past that point and then some.
And the dude wasn't even flinching.
Marcelo Cohn's lucky that Yuasa didn't like have his arm just spin back and like knock him out, because that's how action figures work. You know what I mean? So that was crazy. If people haven't checked it out, like this was the best combat jiu-jitsu show we've ever done. There was that fight that was awesome. There was a cut that was so I haven't seen many people bleed that bad from a cut in MMA, let alone combat jiu-jitsu. It's fun. It's different. It's exciting. It's awesome to sort of be ingrained in this sport that I understand it's not for everybody, but if you like jiu-jitsu and you want to see jiu-jitsu, the only way you're going to see real honest jiu-jitsu is by having strikes involved. But when there are strikes involved, you're just going to get so close to MMA to where you can win fights with striking, and people are just going to prefer to strike. The idea of combat jiu-jitsu isn't to win fights by strikes, although it has happened a handful of times.
Yeah.
But it's really about jiu-jitsu. So you use the striking to keep the jiu-jitsu honest and create openings. And I firmly I love the idea of what Master Vic and Eddie call it, EBI was part of the submission only movement. It's all about, the submission only, submit to win. But combat jiu-jitsu is finish only jiu-jitsu. And you get to finish whatever way you can. And sometimes you got to, hit someone in the face.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like, I know this is going like way left field, but it's kind of like bare knuckle. Like when you start, like, it's not for everybody.
Right.
And you take away the things that people boo at, because I've been to, I think, 3 or 4 events, and I think there's been boos once or twice throughout the entire card. Like, people aren't booing because people who don't understand jiu-jitsu or just don't like wrestling, they don't like people laying on top of each other, kind of changes things. And I think what you said about it keeping, the combat jiu-jitsu keeping it honest, I think makes a huge, like, change in the way you think about it.
I've never heard anyone boo at combat jiu-jitsu, and if they did boo, I'd be like, "Why are you here?"
Yeah,
like literally, why are you here? Like, if you're booing at jiu-jitsu, like that's like going to the ice cream shop and going, "Can I just get fudge and a cherry?" You know what I mean? Like we serve ice cream here. Like, sure,
it's not
you might like the accoutrements.
It's not formatical.
Right. It just doesn't make sense formatically. Well, formatically is actually a word, unfortunately.
Oh, damn it.
You get the picture.
I'm just gonna keep. I'm gonna have to go back and keep a tally of how many times we used it in the show, and then I'm gonna have to owe you royalties at some point, because I'm gonna find out you trademarked and did everything you needed to with that word. So
yeah, let's make it an NFT so we can make real money.
Oh,
I don't really know what an NFT is. I'm
still trying
heard
to
it on the radio.
I feel like they're just making shit up.
They are.
They're like, hey.
1 Bitcoin is worth like $60,000. Hand me a Bitcoin.
Yeah. Buy a Tesla with a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'll take the Tesla. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Your blockchain, I don't know what that means. I'm just pulling your blockchain. I know what it means.
Just using terms, like whatever.
Crypto mining.
Oh, God. I had friends who were doing that. And they're like, you'd see their room and it'd be like 6 desktops just running. And I'm like, you're going to burn your house down.
Wait, they were actually mining?
Yeah.
Do you know how much it costs to mine 1 Bitcoin?
Yeah. This was, I don't want to say 10 years ago, because I don't think that timeline adds up. But it was right at the beginning.
Oh, no. So my buddy bought something with a Bitcoin in like 2004. It had change left over. That was a Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And in 2015, remembered that he had a Bitcoin wallet with some change in it, and logged in and found out he had like $1,000.
Jeez.
So yeah, it was definitely a thing.
Oh man, got way off topic there, but I don't care. That was a lot of fun. What
is the topic? I mean, there's nothing. I mean, we're just having a conversation. That's one thing that I will say about podcasts is, like, people will ask me all the time, like, what makes a good podcast interview? Well, don't make it an interview.
Yeah,
make it a conversation. Yeah.
I used to, when I started. Like, I didn't even start watching MMA until, like, 2008. So I got in way late to the game because I didn't like anything violent. Like, I was like, oh, Grand Theft Auto was, like, my violence. So, like...
Grand Theft Auto was really violent.
I'm not going to lie, I was playing Vice City before I got on here because, honestly, I bought that, GTA 3, and San Andreas for $17, like, 2 weeks ago.
That's a pretty good deal.
And I was like, yeah.
Well, GTA 5 is the first Grand Theft Auto I ever actually beat, like, in its entirety.
Yeah, I'm having some trouble. I'm having some trouble because the characters in Vice City are, what's the word? Dumb.
Okay. I'm
like trying to keep somebody alive. He runs.
So what you're saying is they're not very formatical.
No, they're not very formatical. They're very ill-formatical. Like what?
Unformatical. Unformatical. Whatever.
Whatever it is. No, but when I started, I mean, I was watching MMA for a year before I started writing for like a mag, and I went from like nothing, and like you said, I think it was really cool. Again, that you said when you get interested in something, you become obsessed.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily a strength. That might actually be a weakness. Like.
Listen, it's the same thing as when somebody says, "Hey, I got this really cool new video game," and you play them, and they've been playing it for months, and you beat them, and they're like, "What?"
Right.
I'm like, yeah. I have this weird record where I've never lost. I've never kept track, but I can remember that I've never lost when somebody said, "Oh, I've got this new game, let's play." I win. But it's that thing, it's that obsessive thing. So maybe that isn't a good trait, but I think...
I mean, It's a good trait when it works out for your advantage. Like you start an MMA podcast and then you find yourself being an MMA broadcaster for like 20 years. That's a good thing. It's not a good thing when you spend like $400 on bowling one month and then you just unfortunately max out a credit card because you like to bowl.
Did
and then you never get good at it. But I'm a pretty good bowler. I may or may not have spent like $400 bowling one month when I was like 19. But
I mean,
whatever.
That's impressive. That was like what 2002-ish.
Yeah, exactly 2002. I beat Rob Tatum bowling. You can ask him about it.
Oh, we made it almost made it through the whole thing. Yeah, so it's really cool though, because like Rob's opened a lot of doors. When I worked for Ultimate MMA Magazine, and they literally just went under. Like one day it was just like I sent in some articles in 2014, and they said, "Hey, we're done. Bye." And I was like, it's really one of the only things, the only, communities or the only, conglomerates, we'll just call it. I'm trying to use big words because formatical is still on the brain.
I mean, we set the bar high with a word that's not real.
We did. And I remember Combat Press had just started out. I didn't know anything about them. And, I followed them. They followed me back. And I had been, I didn't write anything for a few months. But I was still actively trying to, like, set things up and kind of, find a home for wherever I was going to be. And that's when I got to meet Rob and Brian. And, they brought me on board. And I've been with them now for 7 years. But it's so funny for me to go places. Like when I got to meet Esther Lynn, because I'm also a photographer. So, of course, to me, Esther's, a huge inspiration. And I'm just like, hi, I'm so-and-so. And I was like, I work with Rob. And I was like, I never thought that line would be enough to like, get me. Oh, okay. It, like, opens the door fully. So, it's very interesting. And then when I told them who was going to be on the show, Rob's like, why would you want to talk to TJ? Like,
why wouldn't you want to talk to TJ?
And I said, because TJ said yes. That's why I want to talk to TJ.
I mean, you want to have a formatical conversation? I'm your guy.
I do. I had a formatical conversation with Dean Thomas a few months ago. Like, that was fun.
I like Dean. Dean's awesome.
Dean was definitely like a bucket list kind of thing. Because, again, I got into it later, but once I got into MMA, like, I was straight obsessed. I was buying the old DVDs from Movie Stop when they would do, like, the buy one, get two free. I have a collection of UFC DVDs I'm not proud of.
I sold all mine. When Fight Pass came out, I'm not kidding you, I sold all mine.
Fight Pass. I felt like I felt like it should have just gone straight across the bottom of the screen when you said that. But
I try to take care of the people that take care of me.
Absolutely, and I think that was a great idea, and I'm still trying to offload mine. I'm sure I'll find somebody who wants them eventually, but, I'd go, I'd watch pride fights with my buddy for 4 hours at a time, and I'm like, I couldn't stop, like 4, 5, 6 hours. I'm like, it's 3 a.m.
Right.
I need to be at work at 8. Can we watch one more? Like, one more? Like...
Yeah, I mean, so I was lucky when I first started watching MMA. It was 2002, and during that time, there'd only been like 40 UFCs and 25 Prides. So I was able to watch pretty much every Pride and UFC event in like a year and a half. And now I think about fans that try to get involved and become obsessed with the sport. Like, good luck. Yeah. You're not going to be able to watch everything. It's not possible.
You're going to have to watch the best of and hope that has really what the best of is.
I mean, think about this. When I first started watching the UFC, their entire 10-year existence at the time was less than 1 calendar year of fights that they have now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's insane. Like, there were 5 or 6 events a year if you were lucky. I remember going months at a time without a UFC event. And as a hardcore MMA fan, it was like, it was a double-edged sword. Like, one thing, it kept you hungry because
absolutely
it was like Christmas 4 or 5 times a year. But at the other time, like I was doing a podcast at the time. Like I did 2 shows a week for SureDog starting in December of 2005.
Wow.
And I have no idea what we talked about for months. You know what I mean? Like, there would be no Pride or UFC event for like 8 weeks at a time. And we had to do 16 shows between, that time. So, like, what are we doing?
And that's what's crazy about it is because you look back at those older days and it would be like Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell. And then like 3 months later, it'd be the next pay-per-view and it'd be like Tito Ortiz versus Randy Couture.
Yeah. There were a lot of people that would be on back-to-back pay-per-views.
And it didn't make, like, nowadays, you never see that. Like, you would never see something like that happen. You know, there's been some one-offs, but
I mean, there's numbered events, though, sometimes within, like, 3 weeks of one another. You know what I mean? So...
Yeah, and it's hard to follow everything now because I kind of miss, like, the one pay-per-view a month. I miss that.
One championship? Is it one? You miss the one pay-per-view every night? I don't know what time one's on. It's like really early in the morning.
I miss one UFC pay-per-view. Damn you.
Yeah.
Don't be formatical. Jeez.
I just like to make really stupid inside MMA jokes that very few people get.
I got it. I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's okay.
Thank you.
It's ultra nerdy.
I'm the biggest nerd ever. I don't know if you're... Ultra, by the way, is like Mike Goldberg's favorite. What is that?
So Combat Night did this, and it's knee on Mjolnir. It's Fat Thor doing a knee on belly on Thanos.
Okay. I don't really know who Thanos is.
Oh my god, how can you say you're nerdy and not know that?
Oh, I'm a fight nerd. I'm not a superhero nerd. There are different levels to nerddom.
You know,
not all are comic books. Yeah.
I never thought that existed. I thought I was just a nerd. Like, nerd was a blanket statement. And then I met some friends, and I was like, holy crap, like, there's levels to this shit.
I'm really nerdy about things that other people, like, traditionally, like, it's very anti-nerd to be nerdy about fights, I think. Like, nerds don't like fights. Well, that's not true. There are a lot of nerds that are, like, big MMA
it has
fans,
changed drastically, and a lot of MMA fighters are nerds, so I think it kind of helps out.
Yeah, I definitely have to duck out of conversations though when people start talking about the Avengers and stuff, because nope.
Well, listen, you know what knee on belly is, whether it's from commentating or actually doing. So my other question is, did you ever get to do jiu-jitsu instead of just training for an MMA fight?
Yeah, so the team that I trained with was primarily a catch wrestling school. I thought I was decent. I trained for the better part of 3 years and then rolled with the blue belt and then found out that I didn't know anything. And that kind of killed my motivation to train, which was good because, like, I feel like I have a really good fundamental grasp of positions, and I know enough to ask questions. And I ask a lot of questions when I commentate, and I've had criticism thrown at me, like, why does TJ ask all these questions? Like what should he do from this position? He doesn't know after all these fights. He doesn't know. Of course I know, but, like, my point again is to make the person to my right look amazing.
The tour guide, yeah,
right. And me asking them, so what are the options here from half guard? That's me driving them to the Hollywood sign.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of that coin is if you're like, well, in half guard, what he should do is this, and this, and you've got...
No one wants to hear my advice. Yeah, I'm not the expert. I'm a white belt.
Blue belt.
I'm not even a white belt, actually. Like, yeah, I think you have to take a jiu-jitsu class to be a white belt. I never took a jiu-jitsu class. I take that back. I did get a free gi one time at an introductory jiu-jitsu class, and then they're like, it's $125 a month. And I'm like, no, I work in radio. That is not happening.
I love it. And it was funny because when you have that fundamental understanding of positions and what you should do, and then when you're on the mat and you're like, I know how to get out of this, and you try to get out of it and you go, okay, I don't know how to get out of this. This is not good. And you have that panic mode, and then there's the one time the gi comes over your head and you just completely lose your mind. But, you know,
I don't wear the gi. Like, I mean, I don't train at all anymore, thank God, because that, like, I'm allergic to getting hit. It causes me to black out and get really puffy, so I don't do that. But I will tell you that the one time I wore a gi, someone choked me out with it, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Like, that's not. I don't want to wear clothes that can choke me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was definitely an experience the first time that happened, because obviously, if you're watching MMA, you're not seeing that. And if you're not watching the jiu-jitsu, you know, the ADCCs or anything else like that, like, you're not seeing anything like that. And the first time somebody did it, I was like, I'm fine. Why am I tapping? Like, why? I don't even know. And
I mean, you're lucky that you tapped. I mean, I got choked out and did not tap. And it's not because, like, I was strong, like, I'm fine. I don't know what happened. Like, they choked me with my lapel, and I didn't know that I was really even getting choked. And then someone is grabbing me by the legs and shaking them and going, it's okay. It's okay. Well, what's okay? Oh, what? It's not okay. What happened?
Like what? Yeah. Well, that's got to be scary. Luckily for me, I've never let it get to that point. I'm stubborn, but at the point where like,
oh, but a good blood choke, you don't know what's happening. Really.
Oh yeah.
You just feel the pressure, then all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, wait, huh?
Yeah. That's why I'm like this the whole time. I'm like, don't just stay away from me. I also realized the beard is a very, very unformatical advantage for me. Yeah, I'm just gonna use.
Oh yeah.
Because when people go for a choke, they get this much of it, and it just pulls. So I've tapped straight on from somebody pulling beard hair. They weren't trying
one day I'll grow a beard. I hear it happens when you grow up. Not there yet.
So I wanted to shift gears and talk about island fights because you get to commentate on, three really different things. While, you've got Invicta, you've got the EBI, and then island fights just takes it to a new level with it being in a ring, which you don't see a lot of time. Obviously, we saw a lot in Pride. It's not really around anymore. So is it any different watching the fights that way or commentating that way and seeing what Dean's done? He's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. 100%. So I don't call island fights anymore. It's called Ikon Fighting Federation.
Ikon, yeah, my bad. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris.
It happens. But yeah, so I do that. The ring versus MMA experience. Like if I'm being completely honest with you, I prefer MMA in a cage. I think it's safer for all involved. I prefer the idea that the referee doesn't have to do resets and things like that. But there are elements to fighting in a ring that go really deep on the technical side. Like the ability to cut off the ring, it's something that you can't do in MMA. And I like the different look to it. I think that there's a lot of value with having athletes get experience in a ring. You're also, if you're more of a striker, you're able to utilize maybe your more traditional base, because if you're a Muay Thai fighter or a boxer or kickboxer, you've had more time in a ring compared to a cage, and there's value in that. With Ikon, we've done a lot of shows in Mexico, and we're going back in a couple weeks. Mixed martial arts, where we are putting on shows, is relatively new there, and it's very interesting to see the athletic commissions oversee mixed martial arts when, I mean, I would say they're where the United States were with rules back in 2001. There are rules, are the same rules, but the ability to interpret those rules and enforce those rules, they're just not up to par with what you're used to. And it's interesting to see not only the commission kind of grow and go through those steps, but also the athletes that are local there kind of learn on the job, really. And one thing that I will say that I've appreciated more than anything doing Ikon and even Combat Jiu-Jitsu and even an EBI in Mexico City, the Mexican fight fan is unlike any other fight fan. And there's a patriotism there that as Americans, we don't understand with our athletes. And it is beautiful. It is truly beautiful, because the loudest building I've ever been in was in Mexico City in a thing called a velodrome, which is where they do some sport called velodrome. It's like the bicycles on the like really steep embankment turns. We had an EBI in there, and it helped that it was like a domed stadium, but it was so loud when two local guys were competing in EBI, and it was like, this is unbelievable. Like you don't hear this for jiu-jitsu, but really it wasn't so much that they were competing in jiu-jitsu. It was the fact that they were two, local Mexicans fighting on a world stage, and the crowd was just eating it up. And it's like, wow, it's neat to experience a combat sports experience like that firsthand in a different country. And I've been very fortunate enough to have that happen to me, a couple times down south of the border.
And that's pretty cool. So how's your Spanish getting? Because I know you
not good. I was the other day I was trying to say excuse me, and I'm like how do you say excuse me? And I was saying escuchar, which I think means listen. And so yeah, I'm just going listen. Not good.
Listen, they make a shirt. There's a traveler shirt out there that's like universal language, and it just has pictures.
I don't need to stand out more than I already do when I am traveling. So I try to just be quiet and get to where I'm going without making too much of an idiot of myself. And Yeah, it's. I mean, me gusta papas fritas, y hamburguesa, Coca-Cola. That's it. That's all I say. You know, give me food because I'm hungry. And donde está el venue?
El baño. You got to ask him where the bathroom is.
Yeah, that's in my hotel room generally. So
we were in Belize probably like 7 years ago, and I just remember like a guy popped out of an alleyway and was like, come here, and we're like, no. And it's like to his left are like militia armed guards walking up and down the port, and I'm just going, if we follow him, we're gonna die or we're gonna have the best food of our lives.
Yeah,
let's go the other way.
I mean, the first time I went to Mexico and saw a federale with a machine gun, I was just like froze. I was like, whoa.
It's different. It's different in Mexico. Like, it's definitely an experience.
A different country. I mean, I've been to Canada. Canada doesn't feel like Mexico.
I don't think Canada is a different country. You just have a different kind of people.
I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, which is like the Florida of Canada. So, yeah.
Well, I grew up in Florida, which is the Florida of Florida. It's like...
Enough said.
Yeah,
Cousin Ron.
Exactly. But it's so funny, and I feel so bad. I was thinking Ikon, and then I'm like, Island Fights. Shit.
Hey, do you know how hard it is to be like, you're watching Ikon on UFC Fight Pass. You're watching Invicta FC on UFC Fight Pass. You're watching Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds on UFC Fight Pass. Like, that's hard to keep straight. And one time I definitely went, you're watching Tachi Palace Invicta FC on UFC Fight Pass. Oh, so, shit. I get you. It happens.
But you've got so much on your plate, like you said, but it's all on Fight Pass, I think, which makes it easier and harder at the same time, because you're sitting there going, like you said when we started, did I forget to do something? And you're like, oh, I've just got to record a podcast with Eve Edwards. No big deal. I'm like, just bring up the Josh Thompson fight from all those years ago. He's already told it 1,000 times. Just bring it up again. Why not?
So I'm about to release an episode called The Once Over, which is Eve watching fights with the two fighters that were involved with the fight. But I have an episode in the can of The Once Over with Eve Edwards watching his fight with Josh Thompson with Josh Thompson.
Holy shit.
So I'm going to put that out tomorrow, I think.
Oh, heck yeah. That's going to be exciting. I want to watch that.
Eve once told me that he was in a bar listening to someone tell the story about the time Eve Edwards knocked out Josh Thompson, but was saying it was John Jones. So that's amazing.
So what were we about?
Like how do you like what do you say? Like what do you do? Like that was me, buddy. Like that was me.
Yeah, like hey, that was me. Oh god.
You're not John Jones. No, you're right. I'm not John Jones, but I promise you that was me.
So that made me think of a funny story. No one's ever mistaken me for that, but there's two things I'm going to bring up just for that. This Bellator, I think 72, where Carl Amasu fought. And it was the first time I was in a presser. So it was my first, I was all nervous and everything else. And I remember he came in like this pink jacket, like pink blazer, fluorescent pink. And I kind of elbowed the person next to me and I was like, check out the jacket. And it wasn't insulting. It wasn't making fun of him. I was just like, this dude is walking out with a pink jacket. And he heard me. And he looked over in our direction. I was like, I put my head down. I'm like, he didn't hear, he doesn't know it's me. He doesn't know it's me. And the person I was sitting next to goes to interview him. Walks up, introduces themselves. And he just goes, no. You're the one who was making fun of my jacket. And in that moment, what did I do? I said, no, that was me. Shit. So I have a picture. It's the only time I've taken a picture. And I'm standing there like this. And he goes, why are you shaking? And I was like, because I made fun of your jacket. He's like, it's all good. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're lucky. You're lucky it wasn't Hector Lombard. He would not be as forgiving.
Oh, God. Do you have a story that I don't know?
I don't have a story, but my friend Lutfi Sariahmed, who worked for Sherdog, asked Hector a question he didn't like in the press conference, and Hector did not take kindly to it. And that's the thing about asking fighters questions. When you're not a fan Q&A, they're still in that room when the thing's over, and you're there as well. I've never had an experience like that. I've definitely pissed off some people in my time, pretty much by accident, because again, I'm the guy that's trying not to be noticed.
Yeah.
That's my whole goal. But
you're over in the corner, like holding the microphone, like a question.
Yeah, I don't really
like hiding behind somebody else.
I don't think I've ever asked a question at a press conference.
Huh.
Because I'm not a journalist. I don't want to be a journalist.
Just there to soak it all in.
I'm a broadcaster.
Yeah.
I have no journalistic integrity. Just give me money, and then I'll say on UFC Fight Pass.
Does that work for me too? Like, do I have to like change the broadcaster at that point? I don't know.
You got to learn a lot about being formatical, I think.
Damn it.
Once you figure that out, you'll be all right.
So I'm guessing by next year, the art of formatical is going to come out.
Nope.
No book. If I write it, I'll just put your name on it. That's fine.
See, do I want to go down this? I wrote a book already.
Do I want to go down this path?
I mean, so it's weird because like I'm not trying to it's a personal story. Like when I was 20, I wrote like a really, really long blog about the first 20 years of my life. It's called Mr. Sensitive. That's me, Mr. Sensitive. And it's a 130-page Word document about the first 20 years of my life.
Did you ever do anything with it, or did it just stay as
I made 10 print copies and gave them to my closest friends and family.
If I find it on eBay, I'm gonna let you know about it.
You won't find it on eBay, I promise you.
I think that's pretty cool. Like, I don't think that's weird at all. Like, the first 20 years of your life. Again, you're not the stereotypical 20-year-old. You're not a 20-year-old today. You're not a 20-year-old when you were back then, because already at 15 you had.
Sure. Yeah, I lived more of life than most 20-year-olds for sure.
Yeah. I know you got a little weird there. The facial expressions. You're like, where's he going?
Well, I was just thinking, like, well, you're saying like you weren't a 20-year-old. I'm like, no, pretty sure I was 20.
You weren't a stereotypical. You weren't a formatical 20-year-old.
No, I agree with you. 100%. The format did not say 20. It said like 22. Maybe not. No, I had a really interesting life. Like I was born 2 months premature. I was a fraternal twin, meaning I had a twin sister who was born stillborn. Had it not been for her, I would not have had enough nutrients essentially to survive. I was a 7-pound premature baby. I had a stroke when I was 2. I had a really tough time when I was first born. All my organs were on my left shoulder, turned 180 degrees. I have 2 spleens. Why? Don't know. But yeah, like I was kind of like a miracle baby. They had to break my sternum when I was 5 days old to put my organs in the right spot. So I grew up a little bit odd in the sense that like my parents were incredibly overcautious. Like they were just very, very worried about like I couldn't play any contact sports. Which is probably why when I was 18 years old, I was like, I'm going to go to this dude's garage and we're going to beat the shit out of each other because I'd never been able to do that. So, like that was interesting. My father, who's like really important to me, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness when I was 9. They gave him 5 years to live. He ended up living 15 after a liver transplant, and I would not be talking to you today if it weren't for him. He was a person that drove me to the radio station every day at 3:30 in the morning when I was in high school. I did not have a driver's license until I was 18. He built me my first radio studio when my time at the FM was going away. And this is like when I started my studio at home, this wasn't like go to Best Buy and like be like, I want a podcast set up. That wasn't
it didn't exist.
A thing. And my problem was I knew a lot about radio, having worked in radio for the better part of 7 or 8 years at the time, but I had only worked with high-end professional equipment. So like we just started buying the equipment that was in the radio station, and I found an engineer that was able to make it work. And that was a lot of money, like a lot of money. Like I have a Rodecaster Pro, which, by the way, if anybody out there is wanting to do a podcast and you're serious about it, buy a Rodecaster Pro. It's the single greatest piece of broadcasting and podcasting technology at a consumer level that I've ever seen.
He's not getting paid for this, guys, just so you know.
No,
right?
no. Well, I just bought my Rodecaster 2 months ago,
Mhm.
and it replaced $7,000 of equipment in my studio.
Did you ever
Like,
get rid
I've
of that
had that
equipment?
No, it's sitting right there. Like, it's sitting right there on the desk. I'm not even kidding. It's a telephone hybrid and a switch console and a preamp and a 2-bus board. So yeah, like, no, it's still there. It's just that stuff's incredibly hard to make work.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, podcasting and broadcasting has evolved to the point where for a few $1,000s, you can have a stupid, insane, great setup. But I dropped around $23,000 for my first studio.
Oh. That one hurt. That hurt a little bit. But
yeah.
But you never gave up on it. Can you imagine if it was your bowling story? Where you're like,
Well, see, I wasn't good enough at bowling. I found success in this whole broadcasting thing. Why, I don't know, but I've been lucky. Probably because I'm like obsessed with being formatical.
Well, I don't want to like ignore the fact that you just told us like an incredibly deep personal story. So thank you for that.
But I mean, it's just, I mean, whatever. I don't remember any of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, I can tell you, like, oh, I was a miracle baby and I had a stroke and it was really hard growing up. But like, the hardest parts of that,
you don't remember. Yeah,
I have no
the memories that have
memory
been told to you over and over, so that you have an understanding.
Sure, maybe it's not true, dude. I never thought about that. Maybe it's all a lie. No, I got a gigantic scar on my abdomen where they had to move my organs around. So yeah, no, it's definitely
that's definitely a first. Like, that's the first time I've ever heard anything like that. Like, I thought, I mean, I know like the nurse burned my forehead on the heat lamp when I was born.
Dang.
I know I was bay flighted before I was a year old. I know that I cracked my head open when I was 3. I had grand mal seizures. Like, I know, like, and then I'm listening to you and I'm just
that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, but it's funny because the seizures are gone. Like, they like, I grew out of them. I guess that's a thing.
That's cool. But I mean, that's great.
It's
that's
weird
awesome.
now as an adult because I'm filling out like medical paperwork and they're like, have you ever had seizures? And I'm like, not like 30 years.
Right, that's my problem. You go to the dentist, you have to fill out a form on whether or not you had a stroke.
Today. Like,
did you fill out a piece of paper that asks you whether or not you've ever had a stroke?
No.
Because I have, and I've had a stroke. So, like, yeah, I think it's generally when you get nitrous. So here's one of the weird, I can't believe we're talking, this is about the last thing I ever thought we would talk about in an interview.
Because it went in a formatical direction.
Right, exactly. So when I was 2, I had a stroke, and the lasting effects of it today are when I'm really tired. It looks like the left side of my face is drooping because it droops a little bit, but it's more noticeable when I'm tired. And Novocaine doesn't work on the left side of my body. I don't know why. I wish it did. So when I go to the dentist, yeah. So the way it works, I guess, is if your left side is affected, it happened on the right side of your brain.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, the left side of my body, like, I've had to have multiple root canals where the Novocaine just doesn't work. And it's weird because like my face and mouth is numb, but I still feel the pain. It doesn't make sense. Like, I can't close my eye because they put so much Novocaine in my mouth on the left side that my eye just doesn't blink anymore. Like, I'll blink and the left eye just stays open. And but I still feel all the pain. So they have to get me like to the moon on nitrous.
It's interesting you say that too, because I had the same thing where they were giving me shots and I'm like, I mean, I know it's numb, but I can still feel everything.
Right. Yeah. See, that's my problem. Like, I've had the dentist, like, one time I had a root canal and I was in the chair for 6.5 hours because every time they started to do it, it hurt. And the dentist is like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you can't stop anymore. Yeah, like, just please do it. Like, it's going to suck. It's going to suck. Like, there's no two ways about it. It's going to suck. So anytime I have to have dental work on the left side, it is like torture.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I've got surgery in a few weeks, which is why I'm doing so many podcasts this week, because I love doing this. And I don't know if I'll be able to talk for a week. So
good for you.
Yeah, right. I'm not looking forward to it. I was like, you guys need to knock me out. I can't be awake. Don't numb it. I can't. No.
I'm just saying good for you because of that podcast hustle. Like, I love broadcasting, but I've definitely had a hard time keeping up the passion to do as many podcasts as I probably should be doing, especially because I get paid for it. That's how I make money. It's been, I don't know, like I like doing podcasts, but I'd like to not. I don't want to talk about MMA all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's hard when you produce MMA podcasts, primarily MMA podcasts. So
it is, and I've wanted to change the title of my show to like MMA podcast and more. Like, just throw an and more on there, but it just cheapens. Like, it's like you said, you know, we did a whole episode where we debated pop culture. So
let's. I get really stupidly deep about podcasts sometimes.
Do it.
First off, I hate the word. I don't like it. I don't like the word primarily because podcast is the idea that people think a podcast is less than radio is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I hear people say, like, I don't have a very good studio, but I mean, it's just a podcast. So it's like, okay, let's think about that thought for a second. If you were on the radio, you would say, oh, I'll put the money in to get a nicer studio.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about that for a second. The radio, it's over the air, right? It's a limited number of people that can actually hear it. The internet is everywhere there's an Ethernet connection or a Wi-Fi signal. So you're going to tell me, literally, when you say, it's just a podcast, I don't have to have good equipment, you're literally saying it's just being accessed by literally everyone that we know exists, but I don't need to worry about the quality of it.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like, halfway through the show, I noticed my banner isn't scrolling, and I was like, you know what? We're going to make this one different. Why not? It's distracting.
But that's another thing, too. Like, when you say podcast and you say banner, to me, a podcast is not something that's visual at all.
Yeah.
Like, I never wanted to do video anything. Like,
neither did I.
My least favorite part of an Invicta is when I'm on camera. Like, let's just get to the part where I can do radio again.
I'll be back on the sideline. Put me back on the sideline.
It's just I'm not, like, again, podcast gives you the idea of, gives everyone a different idea of what it is. So when I told you, like, I first started doing MMA radio, when someone said, oh, you have a podcast, all I heard was, oh, so you're an amateur.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Because everybody has a podcast. It's become...
Not then. I mean,
but I'm saying, like, now, even when people are like, oh, you have a podcast, oh, that's cool.
Sure.
And you kind of get dropped down. But again, that's how radio is. Like, I don't listen to radio.
So why do we call podcast? Do you know?
I'm going to guess there's a formatical answer to this.
There is, kind of. Why do we call radio?
Radio waves.
Right. So we call television, radio, and podcast because it's the delivery method in which you get them. Do we call Netflix television? It is, because it's on your television, but it's not over-the-air television. So people have struggled with that. With podcasting has become the sort of understood vernacular for internet-based audio format. But really,
internet-based audio format doesn't have a nice ring to it.
No, like, but so it's to me. Okay, so here's where it gets deep. To me, podcasting or broadcasting, it's like art. I have the idea that there are minimum standards that need to be met for something to be produced, and like, I don't produce anything that's not worthy of the FM dial. And that's because that's where I grew up. Like, if it's not good enough to be put in the traditional sense of broadcasting to the world via simulcast radio, then it shouldn't be put out, period. Those are my standards, but that doesn't mean I'm right. Like, podcasting is art. Everyone can draw. Doesn't mean everyone should, but everyone can draw. I believe that in podcasting, I make, masterpieces with oil. At least I hope so. Like, I want to do like oil paintings. But that doesn't mean that someone who just draws on a piece of paper doesn't have the same value. Or Andy Warhol making, Brillo boxes. That's art. To some people it's not, but it doesn't matter. It's in the eye of the beholder. Like, for me, you could be telling me all the secrets of the earth, but if your microphone gate sucks, I'm going to turn it off because it's going to drive me crazy. If you don't produce things if you produce an audio broadcast where you're on the left side and your co-host is on the right side, and it's recorded in stereo and it's not mixed down to a mono feed of just your voices, I'm not going to listen to it because it's going to drive me crazy. But I'm an audiophile. So, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a place doing it. And I think it's misleading when someone says, I have a podcast. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. That tells me that you likely have a bit of audio that's available in the Apple Store under podcasts. I mean, podcast is an Apple word.
Oh.
It is. iPod. Podcast. That's why it's called a podcast. You don't have an iPod, it's not called a podcast.
Interesting.
That's that's
just
literally
made
where
me
the
like
first
self-conscious about the audio quality of the show, so just don't watch it.
That's again the thing. Like you just said, watch it. Like, okay, so is this available in an audio format only?
Both. I do both because there's some people who listen to it in the car, and I really don't want to kill people in the car. So
roughly of the shows that I touch, outside of extra rounds, because we don't have an audio version of it released yet, roughly 90% of everything that I do is only consumed in audio form. People generally don't watch podcasts. Like, why? I mean, no offense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy you're doing what you're doing, and if it makes you happy, do it. But why on earth would anybody be looking at you and I talking to one another? I'm not a celebrity. No one really cares about me. Like, if you're listening only and you're not watching, spoiler alert, I'm wearing a Quintet Ultra hoodie. You don't need to watch. You know what I mean? Like, you can get the same experience. So why would you sit in front of your, that's just me. That's the way I consume things. Other people probably want to just turn it on, on YouTube or whatever format they can have and have it on in the background. It's fine. But like the idea of having everything be visual, that's a newer concept. Like I remember the first time I had to do something on video, and I'm like, I don't even have a webcam. Like, I don't want to worry about that. Like, I got into radio because I didn't want to dress up for work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, but
same.
Yeah, like,
but I don't have a Quintet Ultra hoodie because
Well, there was a limited bunch.
UFC Fight Pass.
That's right. That's right. Step into our world. UFCFightPass.com. $10 a month.
Just gonna have you record random things and just play it.
Let's do it.
Just gonna take clips from the show. My phone's gonna start ringing. Your phone is ringing, courtesy of UFC Fight Pass. What?
Coming up next, Matt Quiggins takes a shower. This is not Invicta FC.
Oh shit, that might be the funniest thing I've ever heard. And that's saying a lot. Oh my god. It's weird because
I should do that. I should go on Cameo and do that.
You should.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I've watched a ton of the broadcasts. I hear your voice, but in that moment I was like, it was broadcaster voice. Like, you changed from
yes and no. Because so
it's the enunciation.
Well, if you are a broadcaster and someone says you have an announcer voice, that's like the worst thing you can say to somebody. It's like you're basically saying that they have a shtick. In radio, the last thing you want to do is be pukey, which is like, if you think of like a top 40 disc jockey, they're generally pukey. They're like, hey, everybody. Like, it sounds like they're going to throw up. How about to throw up? Like, don't do that. Casey Kasem wasn't so pukey, but yeah, he definitely had, like, to me, I tell people, like, again, very passionate about broadcasting. So, like, I'll talk to anybody about broadcasting and broadcasting technique. And one thing that I find with a lot of broadcasters that are somewhat inexperienced is when they're talking, they're singing their words, meaning, coming up later tonight, we're going to go ahead and do this. And they're singing their words because they're not exactly sure what they're going to say next. So I'm drawing it out because I'm really trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Like, they'll talk like that. And when I'm saying, coming up next, you're watching this Ikon Fighting Federation. Like, that's the way that I speak when I'm addressing an audience. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be like, coming up next in our main event, this is going to happen. You're watching Ikon Fighting Federation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that one, so like,
you wouldn't be a broadcaster for very long if you continued to
right.
do it that way.
So you change the tone to address a bunch of people. So it's like, hey everybody, I'm TJ De Santis. You're watching Ikon Fighting Federation. Like, that's how you address, because you have to have energy. So it's like, I think like I have an announcer voice, but it's me changing the amount of energy I'm putting into what I'm saying.
So it's the
Because
amount
like,
of...
could you imagine if I came home from work and was like, "Hey, honey, what's for dinner? I can't wait to eat. This is going to be awesome."
You'd be divorced.
Probably. I mean, I would hate myself. I wouldn't want to talk. Like, shut up, dude. Like, yeah.
So I'll take it back. So not the announcer voice, but I can hear the energy, the formatical energy that you put in that.
Yeah.
You know you're never going to use that word again because you're like, he used
Not
it
true.
so many times.
Not true. Not true. And now I'm going to feel like it's something that you and I have, we have this special inside joke together.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The formatical files. Like,
TJ De Santis gets formatical on the Quiggin Out MMA podcast.
Oh.
There's your headline.
Yeah. I'm going to have
People
to
are like,
remember that, you know, while it's...
What does formatical mean? I don't...
You need to look it up. And they'll be like, that's not a word. And I'm like, really? We're going to have this conversation in 2021 when there's words in the dictionary that don't belong there.
Like YOLO.
And fleek.
YOLO.
On fleek.
I still don't know what that one is, and I think that's been around for like a decade.
Yeah, it's been around too long. That's why. Well, TJ, I think that's as good as... Like, I could listen to you talk about broadcasting all night. I really could. Because...
we haven't even scratched the surface.
Exactly, which is why you'll have to be back. And you know what? Maybe we'll just do an audio only, and nobody will ever see what we're doing.
I mean, that's the thing about it now, is it's almost easier just to do video.
Yeah, and I mean...
You know what I mean?
It takes... I mean, once I'm done, it takes 10 minutes to convert it to a MP3. I'm like, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah.
But
how about this? When I first started my first ever podcast, I used to have to write XML code to get it in the iTunes Music Store. And let me tell you, if you forget to put like one of those closed things, like,
oh no,
it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
I think I
like, I can't download the show, and it's like, it's because I forgot a period somewhere. Sorry.
Somewhere, and there's 8,000 lines of code, and man, I did Dreamweaver, not Dreamweaver. What was it? Microsoft had something years and years back, and I took like a web design class, and I thought I was the smartest person in the world, and then I was like, somebody
HTML?
was like, yeah, and then somebody was like, all right, write it without the book, and I'm like,
yeah,
no, I don't know how to do that. No, I'm not okay with that.
No, now it's very simple. It's just press some buttons and put a thing in, and yeah. I might actually start doing podcasting classes, which I'm really excited about.
And I wanted to talk about that too, but I feel like, again, we'd be here all night. Like, but I love the idea, and that was one of the reasons I did want to talk to you, because I love that you're willing to put it out there to try and help people. And we really see, I know you're wishy-washy on it and you've gone back and forth, but we really see that a lot in the MMA broadcaster, journalism, fighter, whatever community you want to look at, where we're always looking to help other people, when I feel like in other realms of the world, like, this should not be okay. Like, people aren't helping somebody else try to be as good or if not better than them. Like, it's a weird thing.
I definitely think that that's not happening a lot in the MMA space, but that's maybe just my point of view on things.
Certain people.
So like for me, like, this is one thing that I always stress more than anything. I'm a broadcaster not because I'm an MMA guy who had an opportunity to get into broadcasting. I'm a broadcaster who is really passionate about MMA, and if there was ever a time where mixed martial arts was not a part of my life, I literally don't know how to make money elsewhere. Like, I will always try to stay in broadcasting, because I worked at a gas station for 7 hours and quit. That's literally the only experience I've ever had. No, I did. It was go ahead and pump 4, because they would, yeah. So there was a microphone involved.
Oh my god!
But I was doing overnights at the time, so it was just too hard to do. But my point when it comes to broadcasting is, like, my biggest fear is that anybody thinks that I am talking out of my ass because I just became a broadcaster because of MMA, and that's like, MMA is definitely like my passion, but it's honestly my second passion next to broadcasting. And if you give me the opportunity to do 150 events for croquet, and it pays me a lot of money, I might stick with MMA, because I don't know if I'm fortunate enough to be able to make enough money doing MMA. But for a very long time, I would tell you, I'll just go do croquet because I want the opportunity to broadcast. And I love the idea of helping people become better broadcasters, because especially in a time now where I told you everyone can draw, doesn't mean everyone should.
Yeah.
I think we need to try to establish a baseline of what sounds acceptable. And there are a lot of things, especially in the consumer grade audio space. There are a lot of things that cost a lot of money that are just crappy. Like if you, I'm sorry, I might be pissing someone off, but if you own a Yeti microphone, you just waste your money. Like it's the dumbest thing ever. It might as well be a play school recorder from when we were kids. That would be like the rainbow buttons. Like it's a waste of money. Yeah, exactly. Waste of money. Waste of money. Why'd you buy it? Because you thought you should. Because it's the standard. Why is it the standard? Because they marketed it correctly.
Because I don't have $400 for a shul, damn it.
You don't need, you can buy a Sennheiser, what is it, E835 microphone, E835 microphone, and a Scarlett Focusrite for $200, and it will sound infinitely better than that. Infinitely. That microphone is designed to pick up your entire room.
Yeah.
You need a dynamic microphone that picks up who you want it to pick it up, because that microphone will pick you up fine, but it'll also pick up your refrigerator if it's on. That's not a good I don't want to hear your damn refrigerator.
I unplug every appliance in the house before I show, so you know.
that's I mean, you could just spend less money on a microphone and then you don't have to do that.
Listen, I'm gonna find it. Was it 835?
E835 and a Focusrite Solo, Scarlett Solo, or a 2i2, depending on how many inputs.
Everything I've done with this, I've had to self-learn, like, you know, because I started this during the pandemic. It wasn't like I could go hang out with somebody and be like, "Hey, teach me this." So if you want to let me come to wherever you're at, I'm sure I could learn everything from you.
Well, with Zoom, I can just tell you now. But that's my thing. Like, I don't want to do one of those master classes where it's like, watch this video. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to make people better, because, like, I can tell you again, I want to teach you the way that I learn. Sure, I can learn how to tie a stupid knot in my tie through a YouTube video, but we're just not really. Like, I want someone. I want to work with someone, because, again, broadcasting to me is art. And yeah, sure, we can all watch Bob Ross paint. We're never going to be able to paint like Bob Ross. But if Bob Ross was with you, you might be able to.
I'll never understand that watching it as a kid. I loved Bob Ross. I still love Bob Ross stuff. Like, if it ever comes on, I'll sit down and watch it. But you'd be looking at the painting and go, I don't see it. I'm not seeing it. And all of a sudden he'd be like, I'm going to draw a line right here. And you're like, holy shit, it's a freaking masterpiece.
100%. Yeah. And I feel like there are very little things that people can do just to get their setup and sound right. And it's hard. Like, the reason that I know everything that I do is because I fucked up a lot. Honestly, like a lot. I spent $22,000 on a radio studio I didn't need to.
You got $7,000 of equipment sitting off to the side right now.
I know. And the problem is I can't sell it to anybody, because like, unless you're a radio station, you don't need a 2-bus board.
No.
Like, you don't even know what a 2-bus board is, probably.
No.
I only know what a 2-bus board is because I needed one.
Yeah. Listen, that was no different than when I sold computers, and people would be like, yeah, I know you're telling me about the processor and the RAM, but what's the bus speed? And I would go, what are you going to use it for? I send emails and I search the internet. I said bus speed doesn't mean shit to you. Like, I was like, someone told you to ask this question.
Right. So, like, in my board, the reason that I talk about buses is because buses are what they are. They transfer audio, and generally in a good radio board and a good radio studio, you have a 3-bus board. Mm-hmm. Program, audition, and mono. You can stop me anytime.
No,
really
dude,
getting in the woods.
I'm telling you, like, this is great. People are going to be like, I thought this was an MMA podcast, and I'm like,
It's a podcast, and that's all people need to know.
Yeah, my podcast.
And it's only really a podcast if it's available through the Apple App Store.
It is.
Or whatever, podcast or something. So, I mean, is it really a podcast if it's on Spotify? I mean, probably, but
I like Spotify.
Is it really?
Better.
I mean, who even has a podcast, or even who has an iPod? That's what I mean. Who has an iPod? I don't have an iPod. What's an iPod Touch? It's a phone that doesn't work, really.
I still have a creative Zen vision. When creative,
I don't know what that means.
Oh man, They were like, it was kind of like when Microsoft came out with the Zune, and they were like, iPhone, iPod killer, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, Anyway, program feeds the listeners. Audition feeds your equipment. Mono feeds your telephones. You need to create something called the mix minus if you want to take phones, or if you want to have, like you're coming through the internet, a browser. So if I want my telephone call to hear you, I need to have a bus that feeds you to them and a different bus to feed them to you, but not have them feed back to themselves and you vice versa. That's called a mix minus. And generally you need a 3-bus board to do that. But the Rodecaster makes it so you can have a mix minus in this fancy little box. The difference between a 3-bus board and a 2-bus board, roughly $15,000. So that's, And when you're me and you don't know what you're doing, and you buy a FM radio studio to put in your dad's garage, it can get real expensive. So that's why I know about that stuff. Like, I mean, again, I was a 15-year-old intern hanging out on an FM station, breaking things constantly and having to call the engineer and be like, I broke this. And he's like, no, you didn't. It's just not turned on. I'm like, oh, got it. Thank you. So like I've made all of those mistakes, and I feel like if you look at a lot of the broadcasting equipment that's out there, whether it's professional or consumer, it's really intimidating.
Yeah.
And it's not really. I mean, there's a reason that an FM radio job pays less than $20,000 a year. You don't have to be super smart to do it. But if you don't know what you're doing, you'll spend like $100,000 to get a degree that says you do know what you're doing, when you can literally be a 15-year-old intern with no life and get on the air by the time you're 17.
I'll never forget. It's 2006. My cousin worked at the college radio station. I remember just sitting there being like, how do you write? He's like, it's not that hard. And it was like classic rock station. And he's like, here, you want this Tool CD? And this Red Hot, he's like, I can't play any of this stuff on the air, and it's all like promotional. And I was like, oh.
I was going to say, Tool is not classic rock.
Oh, I know, yeah. Well, I got Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Now, which would probably be considered classic rock, which is scary.
I've played Under the Bridge in a classic rock station.
Ooh, Rebel.
Yeah. No. I mean, spoiler alert, FM radio, you don't get to pick the songs.
No.
So... Yeah, no,
I just see if it's going to come through the rotation.
I mean, you got to fill, I got to fill during the overnight. So like I couldn't play the songs that started at 5:30 in the morning before the morning show started. So if I ran out of music before then, like if there wasn't enough commercials, then I would have anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour where I could play what I wanted to. But yeah, no.
What's the craziest song you played on the air that like either got you in trouble or...
Okay, so two got me in trouble. One, I played American Idiot by Green Day 6 weeks before it was released because it was out on the internet, and we got a cease and desist. That was awesome. And then I played Christmas Eve in Sarajevo by the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in June because I thought it would be fun. Because we used to play that around Christmas time. So
I'd listen to that in June. I'm sorry.
I mean, my program director was like, why'd you play Trans-Siberian Orchestra? Like, because I needed a 7-minute song because I had to go to the bathroom. No.
Well, that's the best way to end it. 7-minute song so I can go to the bathroom. TJ, thank you so much. Like, I never anticipate to learn a lot. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like you said, it's a conversation, but I'm learning so much more about, you learn it so much about everything.
Isn't that the point of any conversation, really?
No.
It's not?
That's not formatical.
What? No, I take that back. A lot of my job is saying a lot of things while saying nothing at all.
Yeah.
So that is true.
Yeah. But it's like in the sense that I learned a lot about you I never thought I'd get to know. You told some stories.
You never thought you would care. Let's be honest.
Listen, it's the voice. It's the amount of energy.
What is the voice? Who's the Buffer's here? Where's Buffer?
If he was here, I'd probably lose my shit.
I probably have some Buffer here. Hold on. This Rodecaster's got a bunch of fancy buttons. Hold on, see here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's time to begin. Who am I kidding? I'll let him do it. Now, back to the voice
I
of
can't
MMA.
hear that without mouthing it, and I realized that normally I just do that in the comfort of my own home, and everybody just saw me do that, so...
Oh, I wasn't paying
I know,
attention.
that's
I was
the best
looking at
part.
the level. Sorry. Did you know that I produced Bruce Buffer's podcast?
I did, and did it
Okay,
at the
good.
same time, because, it's a podcast, so, I don't...
It's a podcast that has almost 500 episodes and goes back to 2008.
Oh, I know, it's fantastic.
Is it?
Listen, no, it's absolute garbage, and then,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I can't tell if you're being serious or not. Do you know what this is? You hear the music underneath me? I'm not asking you the artist. Do you know what this is called?
I can't hear it. Your interlude?
You can't. It's called a talk bed.
Oh. Listen.
Sorry. Radio nerd. Go be a cool kid and have a life. I'm gonna go do another podcast.
It's 11 o'clock at night here. I'm not doing anything. Almost.
You're a liar. It's not 11 o'clock yet.
10:38. Really?
10:38.
Yeah.
10:38.
Listen, when this comes out, it's gonna come out in the middle of the day. So who knows?
Yeah, but you can't be one of those people that say literally when you mean figuratively.
Oh, or formatically when you mean.
I mean formatically. Because I don't know what the
like,
word is
say
that
it,
I mean.
Say it.
Format driven.
No, I don't like that. See, I don't like that. That's funner and more fun. Like that's that conversation for children. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but that does matter because if you say funner, I'm gonna be angry.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So, anyways,
hey,
TJ.
it was a pleasure, Matt. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Anytime you will allow me to come back and bore your audience with stupid podcast vernacular, I'd be more than happy to come back.
Perfect. Well, on behalf of Combat Press, myself, and then I just do shameless plugs for Fatboy Jiu-Jitsu, Bertzo's Bake Shop, and La Barba Cubana. Fatboy Jiu-Jitsu is actually the one who made this t-shirt, so I really appreciate them. And TJ, if anybody's listening and not watching, Invicta, Ikon, EBI, whatever else, maybe we'll see him, broadcasting croquet one day. Who knows? So.
I hope not. Things will go real bad if that's the case. I mean, but never count it out. Croquet could be coming to the Ocho before you know it.
Never say never. Well, thank you so much, TJ, and I need you for a second after this is done, so give me a sec here.